On January 27, 2006, the Western Union Telegraph Company sent the last telegram in its history. And almost nobody noticed. There was no ceremony, no front pages. The company posted a short notice on its website, the kind of thing you'd use to announce new office hours, saying that effective immediately, it would discontinue all telegram service. 150 years of stop and yellow envelopes and boys on bicycles, and it ended with a website update. Most Americans found out weeks or months later, if they found out at all. A fair number of people, I'd wager, are finding out right now from me. And I think the reason nobody noticed is the same reason it's worth a whole video. The telegram had been so thoroughly forgotten that its own funeral couldn't draw a crowd. Which is a strange fate for the thing that was once, and I mean this literally, the fastest force on the face of the earth. So today, the telegram, the men who tapped it, and the boys who carried it. And fair warning, there's a stretch in the middle of this one, around 1944, that's going to be heavy. If you're of a certain age, you already know which part one means. But first I have to tell you why the thing existed at all, because the telegraph was not invented by an engineer. It was invented by a heartbroken painter. In 1825, Samuel Morse was in Washington, working on a portrait commission. He was one of the better-known painters in America. That was his whole career, when a letter reached him from home in New Haven. His wife Lucretia was gravely ill. He dropped everything and rode north as fast as the roads allowed. She was already buried when he got there. She had died days before the letter even reached him. He had been painting cheerfully for days, while his wife was dead, and the news of it crawled toward him at the speed of a horse. By most accounts, Morse never fully got over it, and somewhere in that grief was the seed of an obsession, that news of the people you love should not have to travel slower than the loving. He gave up painting, more or less, and spent the better part of 2 decades on a machine to kill distance. On May 24, 1844, Morse sat in the chamber of the Supreme Court in Washington and tapped out the first official telegram in American history, down a wire to Baltimore, 40 miles away. The message, chosen by Annie Ellsworth, the young daughter of a friend, was 4 words from the Book of Numbers, "What hath God wrought?" which turned out to be less a message than a fair question. Because within a generation, the wires were everywhere, and they quietly rebuilt the whole country around themselves. It's the telegraph, riding alongside the railroads, that gave America standard time. Before the wire, every town kept its own clock by its own noon, and nobody cared, because nothing moved fast enough for it to matter. In 1883, the railroads and the telegraph companies carved the country into time zones, and whole towns moved their clocks to match a signal sent down a wire. The time on your wrist right now is, in a real sense, a telegraph product. The news you watch is too. The Associated Press was born in the 1840s as a handful of New York papers splitting the cost of the wire. The stock ticker chattering behind every market report, telegraph. The weather forecast, built on telegraphed observations racing ahead of the storms they described. For 50 years, essentially everything in America that moved faster than a train moved through a brass key under somebody's finger. Start with what a telegram actually was, because the grandkids genuinely cannot picture it. You walked into a Western Union office, every town had one, the sign with the yellow diamond, and you wrote your message on a form. Then you counted your words, because you paid by the word, and this one fact shaped how Americans wrote for 100 years. 10 words was the standard rate. Punctuation cost extra, which is why telegrams said stop instead of using a period, because the word stop was free and the period wasn't. I'll let you sit with that. An entire era of American communications sounded the way it did, arriving Tuesday stop meet train stop love mother, because of a billing rule. People became poets of compression. Family legend in half the households in America includes at least one telegram, and they're all 10 words long, and they all still get quoted verbatim at reunions, because when every word costs money, you choose words that last. The company sold speed in grades, too, like freight. Full-rate telegrams moved immediately, day or night. But there was a budget version, the night letter, that gave you more words for less money, sent after the evening rush and delivered the next morning. Families used night letters the way we'd use a long email. Businesses used them by the thousand. And it says everything about the era that Americans knew this rate table by heart, the way your grandchildren know their data plans. 10 words full rate, 50 words by morning. Choose. One more thing about receiving one, and those of you who remember will back me up. Nobody in America ever opened a telegram calmly. It didn't matter what was in it. The boy handed it over, and there was always that half-second, envelope in hand, world on pause, because a telegram was never nothing. Good news came by telegram. The other kind came by telegram. Until you tore the flap, it was both. The operator took your form, sat down at a brass key, and tapped it out in Morse code. A good operator ran 30, 40 words a minute for hours. And the great ones were known by their fist, their sending style, recognizable to other operators hundreds of miles away like handwriting. Down the wire it flew, faster than anything else on Earth. And at the far end, the message was typed onto a strip, glued to a yellow blank, sealed in a yellow envelope, and handed to a boy. The telegraph messenger boy. Uniform, cap, bicycle. For about 70 years, he was one of the most recognizable figures in American life, pedaling through every city and town with the world's most urgent news in his bag. It was, for enormous numbers of American boys, the first job. The pay was small, the tips were real, and the responsibility was absurd for a 14-year-old. That bag might hold a business fortune, a marriage proposal, a death. Some boys rode 40 miles a day. We know their faces, by the way, better than we know almost any working children in history. In the early 1900s, a photographer named Lewis Hine went around the country documenting child labor for the reform movement, and he kept coming back to the messenger boys. Leaning on their bicycles outside the offices, cap tilted, cigarette they were far too young for, staring down his lens at midnight. Because that was the scandal of it, the night messengers. Telegrams didn't sleep, so in the big cities, boys of 12 and 14 rode alone through every district of town, at every hour, into every kind of address. And Hine's photographs of them helped push the child labor laws that eventually took the youngest boys off the night streets. If you've ever seen those pictures, and you have, they're in every history textbook. You've been looking at telegraph boys all your life without knowing their trade. And I want to name two of them who climbed all the way up, because you know their names. A Scottish immigrant kid in Pittsburgh got his start delivering telegrams in the 1850s, memorized the faces and addresses of every businessman in town, taught himself Morse on the side, and parlayed the whole thing upward until he was the businessman. Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in America, began as a telegraph boy, and he said his whole life that it was the job that made him. Half a century later, another immigrant kid, Russian this time, in New York, took a job as a telegraph messenger, worked his way to operator, then to management, and ended up running RCA and putting radios, and then televisions, into every American home. David Sarnoff, which means the man most responsible for the machines in our TV and radio videos, started out carrying telegrams on foot through Manhattan. That was the telegraph boy's secret. The bag was heavy with other people's futures, and every so often, with his own. And the reason the job could launch a Carnegie is that it came with a ladder, and everybody on it knew exactly where it led. The boy delivered. But the boy also swept the office, and watched, and listened, and the sound he listened to was the key. Because the next rung up from messenger was operator, and operator was a genuine profession, skilled, portable, respected, and paid. A boy who taught himself Morse, nights, mostly, tapping on a homemade key, could test into the operating room and double his wages before he could vote. It was one of the great self-made trades in American life. No diploma, no connections. Just, can you send and can you receive? Which brings me to the third famous name, and the biggest. In the 1860s, there was a teenage operator knocking around the Midwest, working the night press wire, the fast copy, the newspaper feed, and he was, by the accounts of the men who worked beside him, one of the quickest receivers anyone had seen. Part of his edge was strange. He was hard of hearing, and the clatter of the office fell away for him, leaving just the key. His name was Thomas Edison. Before the light bulb, before the phonograph, before any of it, Edison was a telegraph man. Several of his first inventions were telegraph improvements, and he came up through the same operating rooms as thousands of anonymous men with fast hands. Those rooms had a whole culture we've completely forgotten. Operators on quiet night shifts played chess against operators in other cities, move by move down the wire. They gossiped across 3 states. They recognized each other's fists the way you'd recognize a friend's voice, and struck up friendships, and more than friendships, with people they had never once seen. There are documented cases of operators courting over the wire in Morse for months, and at least a few weddings performed by telegraph, vows tapped out across the distance. If that sounds familiar, two people falling for each other through a screenless screen, all text, no faces, it should. The telegraph operators of the 1880s were the first people on Earth to live part of their lives online. Every strange thing about the internet, they found first in dots and dashes. The work took its toll like any trade. Send Morse 8 hours a day for enough years, and the wrist gives out. Operators called it glass arm, and it ended careers the way a bad back ends a mason's. The trade even produced its own tools to fight it. A semi-automatic key called the Bug, made by Vibraplex, a brand telegraph men swore by the way carpenters swear by their hammers, that let a worn wrist keep its speed. There are radio amateurs sending on century-old Vibraplex bugs to this day, which tells you something about how that generation built things. But you knew that. It's the whole channel. And because the wire was how anything important traveled, the whole American century arrived, moment by moment, in 10-word bursts. My favorite example, and I keep a copy of this one pinned above my desk, is from December 17, 1903. Late that afternoon, a telegram left a coastal station in North Carolina, addressed to a bishop in Dayton, Ohio, from his son. It read, in the clipped grammar of a man paying by the word, "Success 4 flights, Thursday morning, all against 21-mile wind. Inform Press. Home Christmas." That's Orville Wright, telling his father that human beings could now fly, and telling him they'd be home for Christmas, in the same breath, at the same rate per word. The airplane and the holidays, one telegram, equal billing. And here's the detail that makes it perfect. Somewhere along the wire, an operator fumbled the sender's name, and the telegram announcing the birth of aviation arrived signed Orville Wright. The most important message of the new century, and the century misspelled it. Machines were fast even then. They have never once been careful. That's how the news came, decade after decade. The gold rushes and the assassinations, the armistices and the crashes, election nights. All of it first existed, for most Americans, as a strip of typed words glued to a yellow blank. The telegram wasn't part of the century story. It was the paper the century was written on. Now, the part of this story that made me laugh out loud in a library. By the 1930s, the telegram had an image problem. It had carried so much bad news for so long that the yellow envelope itself frightened people. Western Union had a public relations man named George Ostlund who wanted to fix that. He thought, in his words, messages should make people happy for a change. So in July of 1933, when he learned a fan wanted to send birthday wishes to the crooner Rudy Vallee, Ostlund talked an operator into singing the message down the line. The singing telegram. That's a real invention, by a real man, with a real date, and his bosses reportedly thought he'd embarrassed the company, right up until the orders started pouring in. For decades after, a Western Union boy might show up at your door and, God help him, sing, "Happy birthday, congratulations, will you marry me?" A company built on Morse code, and Stop had accidentally invented the greeting card with legs. I love that story because of what it admits. Western Union knew exactly what its envelope had come to mean, and no one knew it better than the mothers of 1944. Here's the heavy stretch. Those of you who lived it, forgive me for telling it plainly. The young people need to hear it plainly. During the Second World War, the War Department notified families of casualties by telegram. There was a formula, and hundreds of thousands of American families received some version of it. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret, which meant that for 4 years, in every neighborhood in America, the most frightening thing in the world was a boy on a bicycle. You have to picture the street to feel it. Houses with sons overseas hung a small banner in the front window, a blue star on a white field, 1 star per boy in the service. Everyone on the block knew every banner, and every banner knew the sound of a bicycle. And when the worst happened, the blue star came down and a gold one went up in its place, and the whole street understood without a word being said. That was the arithmetic of an American block in 1944. Blue stars, gold stars, and 1 boy on a bicycle deciding, through no fault of his own, which was which. Mothers with sons overseas learned to watch the street. A Western Union boy turning onto your block stopped every heart on it, house by house, until he passed, And the relief when he pedaled by was instantly, guiltily, someone else's catastrophe. There are accounts of women who couldn't hang laundry without keeping one eye on the corner. And think, for one moment, because I had to, of the boys themselves. 15, 16 years old, riding up somebody's walk knowing what was in the envelope, ringing the bell, standing there while a mother read it. Some offices tried to send a minister or a neighbor along when they could. Often there was no one to send but the boy. Nobody who waited out those years ever saw a yellow envelope the same way again. If your family has one of those telegrams folded in a Bible somewhere, and some of you do, you know it's not a piece of paper. It's the worst morning in your grandmother's life, kept. I said at the start that the telegram died without a funeral. That's not quite right. For a certain generation, every telegram was a little funeral, or a little wedding, or a birth. The telegram never carried small talk. It couldn't afford to, at 10 words. It carried only the moments that split a life into before and after. After the war, the long goodbye. Long-distance calling got cheap, and a phone call had something the telegram never offered, a voice. The teletype replaced the brass key, and the old Morse men aged out with their fists and their lore. The messenger boys traded bicycles for motorbikes, then vanished into the mail. By the 70s, the telegram was mostly ceremony, weddings and funerals, official notices. And by the 90s, it was a novelty, riding on fax machines and phone lines, a telegraph in name only. The last Morse operators in commercial service were already museum pieces, demonstrating the key for school kids who'd never wait for anything in their lives. And then that January day in 2006, and the quiet notice on the website. The people who sent the final telegrams that week were mostly collectors and sentimentalists who'd heard the end was coming. Folks wiring each other goodbye, on purpose, to own the last of something. I understand them completely. Here's the twist most people miss. By the way, Western Union didn't die that day. You've seen the sign this week, in the grocery store, at the pharmacy counter. Western Union is a money transfer company now, one of the biggest on earth, and it has been in that business since 1871, when somebody realized that if a wire could carry words, it could carry a promise to pay. The words were the famous part, the money was the durable part. So the company that delivered your grandmother's wedding congratulations and her worst morning is still out there. It just stopped carrying sentences and kept carrying sums. The telegraph company outlived the telegraph. There's a lesson in there somewhere, and I don't think I like it. One more date, because the world's version of this story has a lovely coda. India, which ran the largest telegraph system on Earth, kept its state telegram service going all the way to July of 2013. And when Indians learned the final day was coming, they did the opposite of what America did. They lined up. Tens of thousands of people flooded the telegraph offices in the last hours, sending farewell telegrams to parents, to children, to themselves, so that somebody they loved would receive the last of a 160-year-old thing. The telegram's true funeral happened 7 years late and 7,000 miles away, and it was standing room only. So what do I want you to take from this one? 2 things. First, go look in the keepsake box. Your mother's, your grandmother's, the shoebox on the closet shelf. I will bet you real money there's a yellow envelope in it. A wedding congratulations, a birth announcement, an arrived safe stop. 10 words that mattered enough to pay for, from somebody who chose them like they cost something, because they did. If you find one, read it in the comments. Word for word, stop and all. I mean to read every one. And second, the next time a grandchild fires off 100 texts in an afternoon, you're allowed to tell them, gently, that your family had text messages in 1930. They arrived by bicycle. They cost a dime a word. And precisely because of that, nobody ever sent one that didn't matter. We got speed, and I'll never argue with speed. But somewhere between the brass key and the pocket phone, we lost the tax on words, and I'd say the words have noticed. Wire when you get home. Stop. Love. Stop. If stories like this stay with you, subscribe to The Last Repairman, and I'll bring you the next trade America forgot.